AM2Z, that person, could that person identify themselves?
Hey, John.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
You have a good weekend?
Yes. Yes, I did. Filled it up with a lot of this.
Oh, even on the weekend?
Oh, come on. You know, we union people never stop. How was yours? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I was painting like a trellis thing all weekend, so it didn't even feel like I got a weekend, but you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least I wasn't in front of the computer like you were.
Yeah, not bad. It was okay.
But it looks like we've got folks kind of filtering in here.
Yeah, I think we're getting close to a full house. So it looks like we're missing Steve. So there's a little bit of a delay for that.
Okay.
I see that Steve is saying he needs a new invite.
Hmm.
So I will send that over to him.
Okay.
John, maybe send it to Francisca as well.
Sure. Sorry for the delay. I just sent that over to them again.
No worries.
Okay. Hi, Francisca. Hello, John.
Are we all here? I think
Hey, Steve.
we're close.
Okay. I think we're all in.
Yeah, I think we've got everybody.
All right.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. Nice to see you today.
Good to see you too. It is, we left with a pretty fruitful discussion at the end of last session where we were, I think, clarifying both sides' concepts of at least initial ideas of where we might go. And I know that the district I've been in, you guys I know have response for us on some of the ideas we provided last week, which is great, and thank you. And we sent to you and to Lisa Rogers a document that contains sort of a proposal, so to speak, for the restart of schools under distance learning and transition into hybrid. And that document was an attempt to contain sort of all of the issues, not just the ones that we're talking about now, but all of the issues. And the reason why we sent it that way was because with the limited amount of time that we have prior to the actual start of school for educators, we thought at least to have you with all of our thoughts in one place would help us by both sides having a sense of, you know, what ideas are at least going on in our minds.
Okay.
So we obviously do not intend to get to that entire document today. We are not going to give a line-by-line presentation like a traditional bargaining proposal.
Sure.
Because time is so short, I think it's important just to move back to the discussion of the workday.
Agreed.
And when we get to that, Brian, that document will have elements of section 4 and section 6 in it and that's the sort of regular working conditions and the special education working conditions sections. And if we have time, we can discuss other portions of it, but certainly those will be the two that we'll be moving to first. And Steve will begin to introduce those. But I know that first your side you're sort of next to bat, so to speak. So you have some responses for us on your ideas related to the 30th concepts that we gave.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you sending over that document. It's always nice to have a starting point, and so appreciate the work that went in there, and also the presentation from last week. There's a lot of valid points made and concerns raised, and we definitely understand that impact on teacher workload, incredibly important, and those topics are ones that we know need to be accounted for. I think at the same time, we're also focusing primarily on student learning and how this is going to work. And I know your side is too, your team is too. How is this going to work for kids? And are they getting as high quality of education as they possibly can under the circumstances, the unusual circumstances that are new to all of us? So focusing on that student learning impact, what that environment's going to be like, obviously, is kind of our primary touchstone. And so, as we were looking at some of the language that you provided us last time and kind of the breakdown of that time, for us, it was a little bit difficult as we try and kind of meld that with the ODE requirements, both in the form of our statutory requirements, which are still existing for us, the instructional hours piece, as well as the Safe Schools Ready Learners, how that's all going to sort of blend together. Mm-hmm. And so we'd like to share some additional information because we feel like as more specific as we can get about how we envision the day looking, rather than kind of labeling blocks of time, we'd like to show you what the specifics of how we see this day rolling out, and also some of the supports that teachers are going to have, because one of the things we heard loud and clear last time is the burden is different this year. The burden is greater, and we have a new learning environment to try and account for. We have new technology we're going to have to account for. And so I think that it will and has to look a lot different than the spring. And I think that there is a significant amount of planning and work that's being done to ensure that happens. And so I'm going to turn it over to Sean, and Sean's going to walk through a variety of things with you that shape our vision for the day for students and the day for educators. And we'll see how those things kind of line up with some of the framework that you gave us. So Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you, and
okay.
You've got screen sharing capabilities there.
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to share with you a few things today. I want to share with you a middle school and a high school sample schedule that we've put together, and we've gotten feedback from our high school teachers just this morning, actually, on that. And then Kathleen is going to share what an elementary day could look like. And then I'm also going to share with you the different tools that the district has that will hopefully make teachers' lives much easier and make distance learning, much more efficient. So we'll start with the middle school schedule. And oh, I have to share my screen. Sorry. John, can you let me share my screen? It says that the host disabled it.
Well, just once I'll let you
Thank you.
share. Let's see. I wonder how one goes about doing that. Schonberg, there we are.
Sean, I temporarily made you a co-host.
Thank you.
All
I'll
right.
go to your head, but you should be able to share.
Oh my gosh. This is amazing. All right. Can you guys see it? Now you can. Now you should be able to.
Now I can, yes.
Okay. So this is a middle school schedule, and the salmon color is what a student schedule will look like, and the green color is what a teacher educator schedule will look like. So we have the day starting at 8 to from 8 to 8:30 for teachers. Teacher day will start at 8:30. 8:30 to 9:30 would be for teachers to have independent planning time in middle school. Between 8 and 9:30, kids will go to the nutrition services hubs to pick up their breakfast and lunch because they wouldn't have time during the afternoon, during the lunch period to go. So we'll have a block of time in the morning. Nutrition services is planning on expanding the number of hubs that they have. It'll be far more than they had in the spring. So kids will go get their food and then come back. And then on Monday, students would start school at 9:30 in middle school. And so teachers would lead a facilitated class Monday for periods 1, 2, and 3. And then they'll have lunch from 12:15 to 1 o'clock. There's a lunchtime in there. And then, And then in the afternoon from 1 until 2:30, there'll be applied learning. So it's asynchronous time. So teachers will have time to do during those times. They'll have time for feedback for student work, which is one of the things that was mentioned last time we met. They also have time for content PLC in the afternoon from 1:45 to 2:30. Then we'll come back together for advisory from 2:30 to 3:15 that's the student advisory period for social emotional learning. Then from 3:15 to 4 o'clock, kids would be working on asynchronous work, and teachers would be available to support. And then from 4 to 4:15, teachers would have educator planning time. So that is Monday. Tuesday is similar, except it's periods 4, 5, and 6 are teacher facilitated lessons, and then the afternoon looks the same. And then if a school has a 7-period day, the only thing that's different about Tuesday is if those schools that have 7 periods would have their 7th period as part of during that asynchronous time. Advisory is the same across the board, and then there's afternoon time that is built in for teachers to provide feedback. On Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, those are considered asynchronous days, but this is also time for small group check-in. So teachers will see the kids the first period Monday, and then again on Wednesday, you may choose to break your class up into 2 or 3 groups, and you may see those kids for 20 minutes at a time or 15 minutes at a time to just check on them, see how they're doing. That would check on their work, how they're doing. The same, and then Thursday you would do periods 4, 5, and 6. It's a typo. It should say 4, 5, 6. And then Friday, same thing. So you have 2 days that are at the beginning of the week that are front-loaded teacher facilitated time, and then the rest of the time kids are working on things, but checking in with teachers. And it's sorted out here by what period, because they need to have attendance as a requirement that has to be taken every day. So we have to have some mechanism to do that. So you'll see over here on the educator side that while kids are doing their asynchronous work, teachers have built-in time to give feedback on the work, have time for small group work and office hours. We'll have some time that's dedicated for push-in for special education ESL students, and then they have PLC time built in. So we put in here content grade level content. These are placeholders, of course. We can talk about how the PLC time actually works, later on. But this is kind of some examples of what would happen in those PLCs. So maybe they might just kind of check in with their other teacher teammates about how things are going. make any recalibrations, and time for planning, and things like that. So, and then for as far as the student time would look of the class period, we would suggest like 15 minutes for a whole group activity, then 15 minutes in breakout rooms, and then 10 minutes to bring everybody back together. And I'll show you some of the tools that we have to use for that in just a second. So that's essentially a middle school. And the problems that really solves for us is the ability for students to pick up their food in the morning, gives them time to do that. And it mirrors the ODE plan for 6 through 12 schools. The schedule really mirrors that plan, so we feel comfortable with that. There's built-in time for PLC time, and then of course there's a built-in time here for teachers to give feedback to students, which I know was a concern that you raised in our last session. So that's a draft of this. This is being shared with a group of middle school teachers, I think tomorrow, if not today. Anyway, we're going to get feedback from them, and then we'll come back. I'm gonna should I keep going, or do you want me to stop here for questions? Okay, I think I'll keep going.
I was just gonna, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. So in that, I just one that there's a lot of questions I have, but I think it would slow us down too much to go into them now. But you asked in that 45-minute period, or you suggested in that 45-minute a breakdown in times with tools that you have from the district to provide those. Are those what you're describing as the required flow of a day? In other words, the 45-minute period?
This is what's suggested this is the 45-minute period is what's suggested from the group, but
right. But the 15 minutes of breakout, this minute of time, that portion.
That's just suggested. That's
okay,
not.
Gotcha.
That's just a suggestion.
I thought so, but I wasn't sure, so I just want to make sure.
Oh yeah. Teachers would definitely have autonomy over that. Okay, so then let me go to the high school one. So as you might remember, high schools right now are looking at 4x4 block, understanding that we still have to take care of some issues with the IB program as well as AP not so much, but IB more. And so we are continuing to solve for those problems that exist. But the schedule for high school starts out similar to our middle school students. They would have in the morning from 8:30 to 9:15 to go to get their food at the nutrition hub. At that time, that would be teacher time for PLCs, and then they would have an hour of that in the morning, and then they would start their day. Well, teachers would be prep from 9 to 9:15 to just get ready to go, and then classes start at 9:15 in the high school. So these classes are longer because we have to, we're doing 4x4 schedule. We have to get the instructional hours in. So we have a 75-minute period. So Monday, and this, I'm going to just say we got feedback from some teachers this morning on the schedule. So I'll talk about that in a minute. I'm just going to go through it as is listed here right now. On Monday, students will go through all their classes. First, second, third, and fourth period. They would have a lunch break at 11:55 to 12:25. And those are all teacher facilitated. So there's passing periods built in there, some breaks built in. And then on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, those would be asynchronous. So kids would, but again, just like middle school, they would check in. So you may divide your first period into 3 groups and check in with each of them. When you're not doing that, you have some time built in there so that you could get and provide feedback, do some office hour work, kind of teacher discretion at that point as kids are working. But again, the attendance requirement is every day, so there would need to be some check-in of each of your small groups on those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then everybody will come back together again on Friday for a full day, 1, 2, 3, 4, teacher facilitated learning. The high school schedule, I think, is a little more straightforward because we can all picture 4 periods of a high school schedule. The middle school, there's some nuances in there. Some schools have 5, 6 periods. Some schools have 7. So that's why it's a little different on the middle school. The suggested breakdown of the 75-minute period, the first 15 minutes could be a whole group activity or a SEL activity, then 20 minutes of whole group learning, 20 minutes of small group practice, and 10 minutes of just assessing, giving the weekly work assignments out, and then a formative assessment at the end. These are again suggested, not set in stone. This is just how you could use the time. Then on this side, on the teacher side, so they have their morning time PLC, so 1 hour there. Then they would of course have their excuse me, their prep period. So that's a 75-minute planning time that they would have. And then they have some time they're not going to be for 75 minutes. They're not going to be with groups. They might not be with groups the whole time, so they would have some other time in there. On Wednesdays, for teachers, there's some time built in here to give feedback. Just like in the middle school, teachers can give feedback on work. They can do some small group work, or we can also do some push-in services for EL students and students with disabilities. And then there as a built-in prep time in the afternoon from 12:35 to 1:50. So kids would be doing asynchronous work, and teachers will be doing, feedback, office hours, small group work, that kind of stuff on Wednesdays built in. So that's the high school schedule. And then I want to show you a couple of tools that we have that will make the teacher's life much easier to do all this. So there's a digital toolkit. Yep.
Sean, you were, I think you made a comment that there had been some discussion today, and you were going to share something slightly different.
Right. Thank you. So based on feedback from teachers this morning, we have teachers from a few different schools, and we showed them the schedule, and they said, well, for our school, maybe it might work better that kids go to school or they have one period, like Mondays, period 2 on Tuesday, period 3 on Wednesday, Thursday, etc. So you just flip this, and so they would have class the same time every day, and then the rest of the schedule would be kind of asynchronous work and small group check-in. The same schedule, just reversed in order. So we're going to mock up some different versions of this schedule where maybe some schools want to meet from 9:15 to 11:55 every day, so they do 2 periods on Monday and 2 periods on Tuesday. Or some teachers said, well, instead of Monday and Friday, why don't we meet like Monday and Wednesday, or Monday and Thursday? So we're going to do some different versions of that based on their feedback. We also want to talk to a wider group of students and get some more feedback from students about what they prefer. But I think for high schools, because there's just a lot of nuances in high school, and every one of those programs is different. There's the, Franklin's different than Roosevelt, et cetera, and Benson has all the CTE classes. So I think what we're trying to do is provide a framework, and then let there be some flexibility for schools to fit their schedule into the framework that we provide that's based on their feedback. So the high school schedule may not be exactly the same at every school, but it'll be in the same kind of box, if you will. And we're going to work on that and get that information back to the teachers for additional feedback, and then bring it back to this group as well. So if I could just move here. So we have a digital.
Sean, before you go on to the tools, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Have you done an analysis on how many minutes in these proposed schedules are teacher directed time versus administratively directed time?
And the high school one, so
either one of them?
Yeah, so the teacher directed time, of course, would be their prep period. So that's 75 minutes. And then there's some time on Wednesday. There's this prep period from 12:35 to 1:50. So that's another additional time. And then there's grade level PLC time. So that's there. And so no, I haven't calculated all the minutes. I can do that, and I'll have that added to this spreadsheet.
Okay.
We're gonna
because just I can't see the whole schedule on my screen at once, just because of the way we're seeing it. But just at a first glance, it seems like a wide gap between the time that we had presented that we need for preparing lessons, communicating, assessments, feedback, etc., which we had pointed out was basically a 1-to-1 ratio for every minute worth of something you're doing with students, whether that's synchronous or asynchronous. You would need teacher directed time to be able to make those minutes happen. And it looks like this, just from what I'm able to see on my screen so far, it looks like we're nowhere near that level of balance.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, I think the PLC time and the PD time, I think we can also talk about that and how much of that is how much of that we can talk about and work on. And then I think we can look at Wednesday some more too. So yeah, we'll come back to that. I'll calculate the minutes.
And Sean, if I could, I was
Sure.
like Steve, I was trying to go through it. The chart is helpful to get a sense of where you guys are going. It is hard to follow it when you have, all the things going on. Do I understand it on say like Tuesdays or Thursdays, there's no prep period built in for educators?
No, they would have their, if they're off, whatever period they're off, they would have prep during that period. And then they have this from 12:35 to 1:50, students are working on their own. Or actually from 12:35 to 3:15, students are working on their own on Wednesdays. So that's prep for teachers. And then these days where it says period 1, small group office hours, async work. I mean, some of that is contact with students, but some of that is also time for them to give feedback and do the kind of things they would do during a prep period.
Well, Sean,
So
if I have period 2 prep, then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where it says period 2, small group office hours, async, that would be my prep period.
Your prep, yeah, that's your prep. Yep.
Then, okay, so I see. So that when you have prep written into other sections, that's different portions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because see, like Wednesday, you're seeing periods 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 in the morning. So you can do your student contact for attendance, but then in the afternoon this is all like students are working. You're not having contact with students here. This is prep and grade level PLC time and lunch and the prep again in the afternoon. So Wednesday, you have actually a good chunk of time in the afternoon to prep. And then you would have your conference period or your prep period every other day of the week.
Okay. Thanks.
Peter wrote this in the comments, but since the comments I don't think are part of the stream, just letting people know that.
Yeah, I can't see them.
Okay, just the grade level PLCs and content PLCs are not educator directed time. So when we're talking about educator directed time, we're not looking at those.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying, Charity.
All right. So then I just want to show you some of the tools that are available for teachers. So I want to start with Atlas. So this is where the curriculum is housed. This is actually not my account. I don't have access to this for some reason, but they're fixing that for me. So I'm using somebody else's account. So I have to show you an elementary school example, but this is K-12. This is the same K-12. So we'll just pick 3rd grade for now. And let's say that we were going to do unit 1. And this, so this has been built out more significantly since last people saw it, and it's still actually being built out. But I just want to show you the things that are available for teachers in terms of planning. There's going to be, excuse me, sorry. I need to do that. They are building daily lesson plans right now that will be linked in here, so you'll see where they belong in just a minute. But this starts with the essential questions that that we want kids to understand and be able to demonstrate. We've added to the language arts lessons. We've added social studies, how social studies is interrelated, because we know that we've heard concerns from teachers about not having enough time to teach everything. So we want to make connections as we can in the content areas in the humanities. So then you have all the standards here are there for you, so you don't have to go looking for those. That they're there. I'm just going to breeze through that real quick. That's all standards based. This is the learning target section. So what students need to know and be able to do. So this is in kind of student friendly language. For this, and these are for the whole unit. So this is obviously, they'll be broken down into weeks and days. And then it ties to the graduate portrait. So we understand which areas of the graduate portrait this unit is hitting. We've added this part from teaching tolerance and social justice. This is from, these are curriculum materials that are available from this organization. And they're added into the language arts lesson plans for every grade level, K through 12. And there are also some curriculum materials that are available here, but this shows the standards there. And then the assessment part is here. So you can see, oh my gosh, why do they keep doing that? Hold on, sorry. The assessments that we would have available to us, there's an on-demand writing assessment there. There's the reading assessment. Then so all that is there for you. So you don't have to create those things. Then the learning engagement, these are just suggested practices that you could use and resources. And then this is not available right now, but it's soon will be. This is week by week. This is exactly what you'll do with the standards that you need to teach. And if you clicked on this, if it were live, you would go to a daily lesson, down to the daily lesson plan. Now, if you are like that and you want to use that, it's being created right now by groups of district teachers, you can just drop this into, you can lift it and drop it into Seesaw or Canvas in the case of 6 through 12. So really, in terms of planning, of course, teachers have to review it and adjust it for their students. And it's not gonna, you're gonna have to make some adjustments, of course. But a large part of it is being done in a way that has never been done in this district. And then there's so that's a tool that we're rolling out that's different from the spring. And then there's also some work done here for how teachers can differentiate. So there's some links here that you can click on for more curriculum resources. So again, if you are happy with what you see in the week 2 of the unit plan, maybe you just want to modify part of it, you can drop it into the LMS and then modify what you need to modify. If we go over here to the
real quick, sorry.
Sure.
All of this looks great, but a lot of it looks like things that, if we needed to, we could look up ourselves. And I know you said lessons are being written. Are there also going to be student materials that are included with us with this? I know one of the issues with GVC was that on some of the lessons, when you'd click on the links for student materials, they'd be empty or they wouldn't be there. And so
the team is working on getting those kinds of those problems fixed so that there's lesson plans that you can use as well as student materials. They're linked. Yep.
And what other areas? There's ELA and then there'll be math.
All the content areas they're working on populating these for. So there's groups. I can only show you this right now because I don't have the full access right now. I'm just using somebody's account. Yeah, they're building it out for all the content areas for K through 12. So you'll have access to that. Then in high school, you'll use this is Canvas. You see, it's not so aggressive. It used to be red and really like aggressive. Now it's changed the color scheme, so it's a little friendlier. So this is a shell, and there are oops, there's a typo there. This is a shell of how a class would be made. So I just made a dummy class just to show you kind of how it looks. You can put announcements in here for your class. You can assign, so when students are asynchronous, you could assign them discussions. So I could, say after you read chapter 1, what are your reflections, and respond to somebody else. It's graded, so you can grade there. You can have quizzes. So if I wanted to do with my class, I'm going to do this with my team, but we're doing a book study right now. So you can make a quiz up that the computer will grade for you. So you don't have to grade it. If it's multiple choice, so you can go in here and you can do different kinds of questions. You can do multiple choice that will obviously be graded for you. You can time it. You can randomize the questions however you like. There's different things you can do. You can have kids, well, it's not live yet, but you can have kids collaborate. So this is the LMS for 6 through 12. And there are a lot of things in here that will save you time. But the better thing, the even better thing is that we have other apps that we are using. Some of you already are familiar with these, but Nearpod is one of them. So Nearpod Nearpod is an app that helps kind of create more engagement. So you can do discussions on here. You can create your own library. There's lessons that are pre-canned lessons, pre-created lessons, or there's lessons you can modify on here. But so if I wanted to go to, you can do it by subject. So I'm an English teacher, you can do it by grade band. There are bundles here that are already created for distance learning. So the days that students are doing self-paced work, there are lessons already here that you can click on, and you can pick your topic. So ELA, grades K through 12, pick your grade band, and then you're going to choose whichever one you want. And this is basically shows it's a slide deck, and there are some questions in there that kids have to answer, some interaction. So Nearpod is really good. Some people have used it before. I'll just show you if you wanted to do it in class. If you wanted to use this in class, where's my library? I did a lesson earlier today with this. Oh yeah, okay. Let's just say we're gonna do a lesson on racial justice 6-8. And I want to teach my class about cultural appropriation. Oh, actually, I want to say, why did Europeans enslave Africans? So the great thing about this is you can do it in multiple ways. You can teach it live. So you can do it as part of your as part of your in-person lesson. You can do it student-paced, so you could assign this out to students to do on their own. And then there are assessments that are already built in here. So there are multiple choice questions and also open-ended questions that you can assign to kids. So if you did it live, let me just show you for just a second how it looks. If you were doing it live in your class, it would send your kids would get a code to be able to log in to the platform. And then you're going to play this video. You can, as a teacher, monitor you can see on the teacher view who's signed in, so you can monitor their participation. There are built-in assessments here, so it stops at certain points and asks questions. So this is check for understanding kinds of things that you can do. So Nearpod is great, and it has content for every subject area, and it continues to grow. And there's a lot of it's very teacher friendly. There's review quizzes you can do that are in the form of games. There's bell ringers, or those do now things. You can do that. So that's a tool that will be available. The great thing about this is you can, if you choose to use this, you can also, this is talks to Canvas. So you just drop it right into Canvas, whatever you want to do, and then you send your kids off to do it. Another
Seesaw?
Sorry. Yeah, yes, it's compatible with Seesaw as well. Yeah.
And does this exist in Spanish?
There are
or other languages?
You know what? That's a good question. I will have to check that out for you. Okay, I'll check it out.
Spanish and other languages for DLI, and also
for DLI.
The Atlas. I hope someone is working on that lessons for DLI, because I know this summer I worked only for the first unit, and they were not ready. So, yes.
Yeah, they are working on all grade levels and content areas for right now. That work's happening right now. Okay. And one other thing I want to show you is it's called Formative. This is an assessment tool. You can go in here and choose. Let me just show you how to do it. Let's see. So you can choose to different versions of assessments that you can choose to do. So let's say we want to do a multiple choice test, and you can make your own, or you can use a bank of questions that they have. 1 second. Let's see. So this one's a math one, where there's a bank of questions. You can set it. You can select the standards that choose. You can randomize this. It could be a 5-question, 10-question, whatever, and kids do it, and it's automatically graded for you. And then that also this also is compatible with both Seesaw and Canvas. So all of these tools that are available are going to be available to. The reason they're selected is because they are compatible with the LMS. So it makes teachers' lives a lot easier. That's the goal.
And can I ask? Sure. How and when will you solicit feedback on Atlas?
So
I see a lot of thoughtful and hard work, but will you check back with teachers at some point within the distance learning time?
Yep. So we will. I'll pass that on to Luis Valentino, who's the CEO, who's in charge of this. But yeah, I know that there are teachers actually doing the lessons, the groups of teachers doing that right now. So there have been teachers that have given feedback, but we will, yeah, I'll pass that along about Atlas. I know there were some concerns about it last year, and I know that for a variety of reasons, and I know that they've worked to address some of those concerns, but I'll find out from him what the feedback loop is. So that's the kind of a overview of secondary and some of the tools that are available. Peter, you can take my rights away now, so I can't share anymore. But you can give them to Kathleen.
Waiting
so she can share
all day for that, Sean.
Switch them over
Huh?
to Kathleen.
Done. You sure
For just a minute, I had
All
access to PAT.
Here we go.
Before we move on, I think a lot of that looks like really usable stuff. And I agree with Emmy. It looks like a lot of work has gone into it. I also want us to really recognize and honor how much time it takes to go. I mean, think about how far you scrolled in Atlas to even get to the place where it was like, here's what teachers are going to do, and here's the student materials, which that piece isn't created yet, which is concerning to me. But to read through all of that, to click on the links, to really get into it in a meaningful, planful way takes a significant amount of time, even if things are created. And so when we looked at the sample middle school and high school schedules, and Peter and John already talked about this discrepancy between how much time you guys have built in and how much time our teachers are reporting that they need in order to make distance learning meaningful and impactful and worthwhile. There's just a huge gap. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you for mentioning that, Charity. And I just want to follow up on that by saying I think it's great that Nearpod and Atlas and many other curriculum tools are coming online that are specific to distance learning, because we need those. That's something we wanted to, absolutely ask for. But just looking at those videos that are available, I saw a 7-minute video, a 9-minute video on a lesson. As an educator, I need to preview that completely before I show it to a student for the first time. So every one of these curriculum pieces will be completely new to all of us. We will have to essentially do the lesson ourselves as a part of our preparation, understand what's in the lesson, and then think about how are we going to introduce this to our own students, and how does this fit into our instruction with our students. So while this is helpful, yes, at least potentially so, I think we all need to recognize that it isn't going to reduce the enormous demand for time that will be necessary to be prepared for a lesson. At least not in a way that's going to that alters what we said we needed in terms of planning and preparation time.
And my concern is just that we have, in a few short weeks, teachers will have 2 monumental tasks on their hands, and that is to support and attend to our students' mental health and social emotional needs, and then also, on the other hand, provide this very comprehensive distance learning education. And my fear is that we will not be able to do either very well. So I appreciate that some sources are being offered, and I'm hoping that they are enough to free us up enough, as you have said before, to be able to do all of the things that we're doing. Because in the ODE document, as you guys know, the social, emotional, mental health is a huge part of the teacher's comprehensive distance learning job.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I do want to, I forgot to mention 2 things. One thing is that the first 10 days of school, you'll have time for professional development for these tools, and also planning time that you'll have separate from that. So that's about 17 hours of planning time and about 17 hours of PD time on the tools. I showed you a couple of them there. If you go to, if you go search on the website for digital toolkit, you'll all of them will pull up. There's a lot of new tools. Some of them people have been familiar with before, but all of them are designed, they're chosen because they do work with our LMS, and they'll also help save time for planning for teachers. Of course, yes, of course, you're gonna as you're using Nearpod lessons, you're gonna want to preview the video and those kind of things to make sure it fits with what you want to do. And of course, even the teacher created materials that we're providing, that your colleagues are working on now. I mean, you know, you're gonna want to, of course, differentiate for your class, and that you know, take that lesson and then you'll modify it to some degree, of course. And we understand that, which is why you have prep time, which is why you have planning time on the Wednesdays for prep, and those other times that are built in to give feedback to students. I think my point was, I think you'll have more tools this year than you had in the spring, and it is designed to kind of save you some time, not in planning, but also in the assessment. There's some built-in assessments that you can use that are quick check for understanding things. There's tools that you can use for students to do independent work that have built-in assessments, so that you're not having to, you know, obviously you're not going to get papers back to grade as much as before. So that's just what I wanted to share about that. And then I want to let Kathleen talk about the elementary schedule, and then we can come back for questions.
Many of you are probably already familiar with this, but before we move on, I see that there's a lot of learning that will have to take place for the educators in order to be up in line with this, that you and Steve spoke about, and you know, Charity and Emily talked about. But what about on the other users end? What about the students and the families accessing this? Is this a intuitive platform to the point that they're not going to? I mean, what's it like to be a student for the first time to be accessing this type of lesson?
Yeah, so there is built-in time in those first 10 days when the student contact time. Some of that is could be used for family orientation. So we're doing that right now with our CSI schools. That's happening. It's called Summer Connections Academy, where a group of teachers and the principal at 8 of our schools are coming together to bring. They're either doing home visits to families' homes, or families are coming to the school to do outdoor socially distanced time to look at the tools that we have, because we know that in the spring some kids did not connect with us because maybe they didn't know how to do it or what was available to them. So we want to prevent that from happening this year. So we're doing this as a kind of a test case, and then we're going to kind of have a template for how other schools can do it once we work through this in the next couple of weeks with our CSI schools. But in those first 10 days, there will be some time that you can use to connect with families in order to do orientation. Part of that, that's what part of the time is for, is to give the students an orientation of how a day would look. So that's our plan for that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and many of the tools that Sean shared were, across all grade levels, K through 12. So what I'm going to share is just a draft of an elementary schedule, grades K through 5. And can everybody see that? I haven't done this on Zoom before. Everyone can see my screen. Great, thank you. So they're pretty similar, the K2 and 3-5 weekly snapshots, with the emphasis being on working with small groups, just doing a general lesson. First of all, giving students time to pick up breakfast, just as our 6th through 12th grade students would need to, breakfast and lunch. And then moving on to a larger classroom meeting where there'd be social emotional instruction that is provided for teachers. And then moving into throughout the day, small group opportunities where teachers can work with smaller groups. So they would rotate, have one group at a certain time and then move to the next group in that time. So it's a block of time, of course, and would move from group to group, just as you would if you were doing stations within your classroom. And during that time, the students who were not meeting in small groups could do some of the other activities that I'll show you below. So small group time for reading, math, and writing. And then synchronous lessons, which could be pre-recorded teacher facilitated lessons or some of the materials that Sean just shared. So of course our readers, writers workshop mini lessons. It could be math mini lessons or writing mini lessons. And then rotating science, social studies, and health, which again will be included in the pre-prepared materials. And of course, time for specials, art, music, or PE, taught on a rotating basis. Wish you could see everything at once. I tried to make it smaller, but it was too small, I think, for everybody to see. And then throughout the day, there'd be opportunities for applied learning, which could include independent reading, working with RAS Kids, some of those apps that have been used before, word work or Lexia, independent math work, Dreambox. And again, a lot of these apps have or programs have assessment contained within them that show diagnostic information, as well as independent writing activities. So it's basically a balance of different activities through the day. So basically, well, the teacher, let's go to the reading small groups. If there's 60 minutes set aside for 3 20-minute small groups, the students could be working on applied learning or asynchronous learning until it's their turn to work with the teacher, of course. Now, if a school has educational assistants or folks of that nature, then they could also help support some of those activities. Of course, all that is still being worked out specifically. And then there's also time built in for the day for recess. And again, this was based on the ODE recommendations as well as parent and teacher surveys that PPS conducted at the end of the school year. So I don't have all the bells and whistles that Sean had, but this is, again, the group emphasized that this is just a draft that they're still continuing to work on. But as far as minutes go, it works out to 4 hours and 30 minutes of teacher time with students directly. The bulk of it being in small groups or asynchronous learning, and 3 hours and 15 minutes for planning, preparation, PLC time, and things of that nature. Any questions?
So you said
Yeah,
it's,
yes, can you, go ahead. Sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Better.
and you didn't have a teacher schedule written out.
No, this particular group hasn't worked on the teacher schedule yet. As I said, they're still meshing out all of these different things and looking at different feedback forums. And so we should have that within the next couple of days. They're continuing to meet.
Okay, because we were looking at least 3 hours and 30 minutes of planning time to be able to plan all of those asynchronous lessons, mini lessons, and then instruction for the groups in the morning or throughout the day.
And again, they did note on here which lessons will be provided, the actual lessons, which include the social emotional learning, as well as the science, social studies, and health lessons. And of course, Sean showed a number of other materials where there will be things provided.
So, and Sean mentioned flexibility. And so is this to show that that minutes can be fit into the day, or is this going to be imposed on schools, or is it left up to principals, or what can you tell us about that?
I don't know. Oh, go ahead, Sean.
Emily, can you repeat? I'm sorry. You mean that this schedule, is it going to look exactly like this in every school? Is that what your question is?
Well, I'm asking how much flexibility there is for teachers.
In elementary school?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kathleen, that would be you.
Yeah, so again, what minutes work out to is 4 hours and 30 minutes, with the bulk of the work being in small groups or asynchronous learning. Really the only full class thing is the classroom meeting. And then teachers would have additional time during the applied learning or independent student work. But as far as the amount of flexibility, as I said, there's still, you'll see, particularly in the asynchronous pre-recorded lessons, that there's a range of time. So that, of course, gives some flexibility because, of course, different lessons may take different amounts of time. But as far as I said, this is just a draft that this particular committee is working on. So I don't think they worked out specifics to that level yet.
Okay.
And basically the focus on small groups is a response to what students, parents, and teachers said in the survey information that we received at the end of the year.
And collectively, I just want us to, because this happened last week and it just happened again now, that we're not honoring that 30-minute duty-free lunch. So if it's 4 hours and 30 minutes of when teachers are actually providing instruction, then that is not 3 hours and 15 minutes of teacher-directed planning time. And for all the other tasks like email and providing feedback and assessment, it would only be 2 hours and 45 minutes. So that is
best case scenario.
Again, yeah, best case scenario. And that's again, a big gap between what our teachers are saying is required to make this work for students and families, and to provide meaningful feedback, and to be able to assess and provide grades and all of the other components.
And also, I think we are the time that we are available for students to meet with us, office hours or whatever you would call it at elementary school, is not planning time. It's actually considered instruction time.
And I just want to also note that the synchronous and the async, if the teacher is pre-recording, is direct teaching. I mean, even if I'm recording, I have to do the planning. And I mean, I cannot teach 2 disconnected math lessons, even if he is pre-recorded, have to link, especially for lower grades. So, I mean, it's related.
Yeah. And just to reiterate what our teacher said, if in a 7 hour and 45 minute teacher day, 3 hours and 45 minutes of instruction, we would need 3 hours and 30 minutes of planning and then in addition to that, a 30-minute duty-free lunch.
Right, I do have to, I mean, I know that I don't know if it's the intention, I don't believe it is, but the idea of that, well, part of this day, and I'm not seeing in it any sort of evil intent, but it does make me uncomfortable to hear that the district is thinking about these other portion of the day as well. That's teacher time, and that includes things like the capacity to, a nature break, for want of a better term, as well as eat lunch, and that somehow you're going to be able to magically accomplish the rest of everything else in this, and students are not going to be, which is wonderful, asking for assistance and asking for clarification and emailing. I don't know how with this schedules it would work out so that a teacher would be able to actually function in the day. And particularly, it's one thing to have this happen one day. Imagine this this schedule running for, 4 months, 3 months. We'll be right back to the same sort of instantaneous burnout and contemplation of leaving the profession that we had at the end of June.
So John, in the secondary schedules, there's passing built in, and there's also there is lunchtime built in. It's 35 minutes, I think, for lunch, and then there's passing between every class in the secondary schedules.
And this isn't a schedule per se. It shows the student.
Yeah.
This is, first of all, the student point of view, student activities that they would engage in during the day.
I'm sorry, Kathleen, I really could not hear that one.
Oh, I was just saying this isn't a schedule specifically. This just shows the activities and the amount of time that the committee designated potentially for these activities.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a minute by minute schedule in the way that the middle and high school was.
So 2 things that I think just to help as we're thinking through the office hours. So when teachers create small groups, that's like we're choosing which kids need to be in those small groups, and we're providing instruction to those students. And when we experienced office hours in the spring, it was instruction. It was students that were selecting a small group in order to receive instruction. So that still, I mean, it was either one-on-one or small group, or these students popped in for this first chunk of time and these students popped in for that next chunk of time. It's not a time that then can be used for other things also, because you have a constant kind of rotation of students coming in during that time. And if you do end up with a window when you don't have students, you can only kind of do so much because you're waiting for those students to come. So to really get into something, or to be planning and creating a lesson and watching like the videos in Nearpod in order to figure out if they are appropriate for your class and meet the needs that you want to address, that requires like your attention. So to be kind of split between waiting for kids to pop in and adjusting and pausing and going back doesn't create for meaningful planning. And then the other thing, just like this idea of like a pre-recorded read aloud or writing mini lesson, just so that's something that the time block is 15 to 20 minutes. And so just to help us think about, I was doing pre-recorded social emotional read aloud books and send them to my students once a week. So I'd send them out every Monday. And the story would be anywhere from 4 minutes to 6 minutes. So, right, it's like a 4 to 6 minute recording. But to create that, like it took the 4 to 6 minutes of recording, and sometimes the dog would bark or I would misread the name or whatever. And all of a sudden I have to start over, right? So that 4 to 6 minutes turned into 10 or 15 minutes to get a recording that was a usable recording. And then this just the process of having to compact it and maneuver it around to be able to get to where I can upload it and make it accessible to my students. Then was another chunk of time. So it's not, so if we're saying we're going to record a lesson and it's going to be a 15 to 20 minute lesson, for the teacher to create that and to get it to a place where a student can use it, we're looking at 30 to 40 to 50 minutes, you know, to get that to a usable place. So just to really be thinking about the amount of time that goes into these different tasks, like in general, like this is exciting direction to see. There's a lot of components here that look really good. It's nice to see that there'll be some centrally designed lessons that can be accessed, but it's still like the amount of time it takes to do this. I just don't know that that's fully being recognized or honored.
And just to add to that, you know, I'm looking at the elementary, I will have 8 different groups every day that I have to plan for. 3 small groups of reading, 3 small groups of math, and 2 small groups of writing. And the point of doing a small groups is because you are differentiating, you are meeting the students where they're at. So that means that I have to plan specifically to be able to teach those 8 groups on a daily basis. I don't know how sustainable is that.
Another observation about the schedule is it looks to me as if kids as young as kindergarten would need to be getting in and out of virtual environments. Maybe it looks like 9 or 10 times a day.
Sorry, is that Elizabeth?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I can't hear you.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
It's better. It's just a little bit low.
Oh. Is it better now?
That's better. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Sorry about that. I was just saying, it might be helpful to see this timed out over a day, but what it looks like to me is that kids, including as young as kindergarten, would be coming in and out of virtual environments 10 or more times a day. And I'm wondering, is that something that you have heard feedback from parents is going well? Kindergartners, you know, getting into a small group at 9 o'clock and then being scheduled the next place you're supposed to be is a different Google Meet at 10:40. I'm just imagining logistics wise, the amount of time teachers have reported just spending supporting families and supporting kids to get in and out of these things. I understand the desire to create a lot of opportunities for kids to do learning, but I think we also have to make sure we're thinking about what is it like to be a little person trying to navigate this world. And is 10 virtual appointments a day an appropriate thing to ask of a little person? And if you are, what is asking that? What is that going to feel like for the teacher who is then trying to support 300 logins a day for that many kids coming in and out of all these appointments and supporting their families and supporting the student?
So I think we need to bring this back to you in a how it would look in a day, because I think this may be a little bit harder to read. If we could put it in a daily schedule kind of format, that might be helpful.
Yes, absolutely. I think we're some of us maybe. I know I'm speaking just for myself. I'm looking at it and making some assumptions about how things would work, but I would like to see your version of that is the district's version of what the day would look like, so I can match the two together.
Yeah.
And John, you're talking specifically on elementary, right? I mean, the high school feels a little.
The high school and middle school are in that format already.
Right.
I think it's just easier. High school and middle school is defined blocks of time. You have math class, English class, so it's a little easier to picture than elementary might be.
Yes, I think.
Other questions based on Kathleen's information, or we'll have her stop sharing the screen unless there's some additional questions on that. Doesn't sound like it. Kathleen, I think you can relinquish your hosting duties back. Peter's back in charge. Sean, was there anything else that you wanted to share? I don't recall if there was any other information or if that's.
No, I just would say that we're continuing to work with teachers and get feedback, and so we'll bring back. We're going to do some different mock-ups of the high school schedule, particularly, and so we'll bring some different versions back, and we're going to get some student feedback. And then I also just want to. I understand the need for planning, and this is different, and I totally get that, and it is it's a different environment to teach in, and we have to be mindful of the ODE requirements, which are putting a lot of constraints on the way these things are developed. So I'm going to go back also at your request and add up how much this time we have for planning in the high school schedule and middle school schedule, and we'll bring that back as well.
Okay. And Sean, if I could, am I unmuted? Yes. Sean, if I can, I just want to stress again, I appreciate that you are seeking educator input on this. But as you can see, half the day and half the discussions are being led on this team by educator input,
Sure.
By educators. And it is very difficult to be having these conversations and be having a separate set of conversations on the same topic with a different group. You know, the power differential between a person who's been appointed to a committee as a educator and the individuals who are decided to step up and be on a bargaining team, that's the reason why it's the bargaining team. So I would ask, if you're sharing material, before you start sharing this out, that you actually run it past this group here, which is what we're trying to establish. Working schedule that you can then work with the committees on.
Right. Yeah. And the only reason is because they had been part of the instruction group, and so they were. Yeah, that's why. And it was this morning I had a chance to talk to him. Understanding that, and I've prefaced the meeting with this has to be bargained. It's not a.
Yeah, and also I think there's some additional stakeholders on the district level beyond those that are in this bargaining group that have been working on this, and obviously this has been work that's been going on all summer, not just starting now. So there's many different things I know that everybody's trying to get done at once here.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes. Understood.
Sean, when you go through and try to figure out the time, especially with the middle school and high school schedules where you have blocks where it's like, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. There's overlap in those between what could be instructional and what could be teacher directed time. Teacher directed meaning our own planning and email and feedback and assessment, our time for that work. So when you're figuring out minutes, if you could try to tease those apart, because to lump it in and say that this could be used for that time, but then to have it actually really require that small group time doesn't result in time for us to do our jobs.
Right.
Yeah, I thank you, Charity. I was thinking the same thing. There were elements of the high school and middle school schedule that I thought, oh, that sort of does match with what, and it kind of does in some places match with what we were talking about. And it was that overlap that Charity is discussing that it then would give me pause and say, well, wait, I'm not sure it does. It may and it may not. So yeah, if that's what I think, if we take a look at, if you could email us the sample schedules that you're talking about, so we can take a look and be able to have some specific clarifying questions rather than generic ones, that would be helpful.
I think that's one of our challenges in response to both what Charity was saying and you, John. That's one of our challenges is categorizing time. So for example, the asynchronous learning time, which you had to plan for, obviously, in order for students to engage in. But while it's actually happening, if it's asynchronous and not small group work, what do you call that time? Is that student instructional time? Is that teacher directed time? It doesn't fit neatly into a box in the way we're constructing things on an online environment. Obviously, the synchronous learning time, that fits neatly into a box. That's very clearly teacher-directed student time. But as you get into these other types of learning, it's less clean as to what exactly would a teacher be doing while students were engaged in an asynchronous learning block for an hour and a half or an hour or what have you.
Well, I think, so I was just gonna say, maybe just parenthetical notes. So if you know you're gonna have to have each small group log in order to take attendance, and that's gonna require 10 minutes with 3 different groups, and that's 30 minutes that is not teacher directed, usable planning time for us, you know, and then the other chunk of that time, if it's asynchronous, then that could be teachers doing the teacher directed tasks that we, and we can prioritize them. But just a parenthetical note that says we know that like this 30 minutes is not going to be your time. It is going to be instructional. It's going to be taking attendance. It's going to be checking in and getting them started on that asynchronous. And now this 15 minutes or whatever chunk is left, I think in middle school it was 15 and in high school it would be a longer chunk of time. But
yeah, that was the intention. And yeah, we can spell it out for you. The intention was to respond to your request for time to provide feedback to students and whatever. So we'll go back and show you how it could work if you had a small groups for 30 minutes or whatever, what the difference of the time is. Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say something about the elementary? I really believe that instead of saying pre-recorded videos from teachers, that can be an extension of the lesson I teach that day for the students to go and work after I train them, instead of me trying to teach them a new lesson recorded. So, I mean, just that point there. Like for instance, for writing, if I'm doing a small group of 20 minutes, I can easily assign 15 minutes of asynchronous writing based on the lesson I did on the 20 minutes. Because that otherwise it looks like they're completely two different tasks instead of being one dependent on the other one. Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to add that we are listening really carefully to the input that's happening in these sessions, as well as the input we have received, from last spring continuously through right now, and in trying to identify how do we make this work for our students. And I appreciate all of this input. It's really helpful every time we have this discussion. It helps us figure out how we're going to move forward in the best possible way. And we understand that in order for this to work, we have to make it work for teachers. And so I want to acknowledge and appreciate that the input and the thoughtful comments and perspective that you're all sharing. I think I'm hoping that one of the things that we are trying to demonstrate and live to is, how is this going to look different for fall? We are all of us in every possible way running into the classic problem of there's not enough hours in the day. And so in addition to how do we make the very best possible schedule to meet the needs and the requirements, we're also trying to push as much as we can. What are other solutions that are not how we move time around, right? But are other supports, other resources that bring workload down in other ways. And that's been a heavy emphasis in our planning. It's one thing, right, to be in the spring where we had a 2-week turnaround for how do we go virtual. What can we do instead, right, when we have 2 months notice in going virtual? And I think what we're very much focused on is, in addition to creating the best possible schedules that we can to serve those needs, we're looking at how do we address curriculum and content in a way that can address workload. What are our technology tools, and how can we be savvier about what we can provide and how they can be used, and what is the PD needs that are going to be required in order to be able to use those in a way that actually cuts down on workload and doesn't increase workload, which is a potential problem, right, with technology if it doesn't have the right preparation and PD around it. We're looking at what are resources we can push out for staff, for families, for students, because we know that our teachers are on the front lines of answering those questions and fielding those concerns. So we're looking at how do we provide more centralized resources around all that. So we're really looking at what can we do about the time in the day and the number of minutes in the day, but also what are the resources and different solutions we can bring to bear here that really pull down on all those things that are demanding your time and attention. So wanted to make sure that as we are working on that effort, that you provide feedback and thoughts around that as well.
Thanks, Sharon. John, I'm wondering if this might be a good time to just take a quick break so people can get up and stretch a little bit. And I don't know if you guys feel like you need a caucus right now, or if just maybe a break is good, but I'm open to whatever.
You know, I think it would be a good time for us to get a look at, I know, Sean, are you able to share the document that you had on the schedule with us?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, let me share. I think Elisa was going to clean up the high school because there's well, I'll share it with you. I'll just tell
I
you.
understand that it's not a finalized document or anything. Yeah.
And just there's a lot of tabs. I was going to tell you which tab that I was referring to.
Okay. And if you can, maybe, I don't know, maybe you can save just the tabs and I don't know, but I mean, I don't. Yeah.
I'll send it to you, John, and then you can share it with everybody else.
That's what I was going to say.
And
thank you very much. And that would make our time that would give us a focus to how we respond. With that in mind,
there maybe was one other question.
I asked if Kathleen would share, and she said yes.
Okay, John, what do you want? What do you want to do time wise?
Well, a moment or two for Sean to be able to send it to us, and for me to send it out. How about 45 minutes, and that way we're able to actually sit through and go through this.
Okay, why don't we say 3:15? It's 2:23 right now.
Sounds great.
I like round numbers, so easier for me to remember. But if something's going on in the interim, just shoot one of us a text.
Right. We may be able to respond faster, and we may need every minute. So we will. And Lisa, I know you're still on here, so I will text. You're the easiest text for me, so I will send the text there.
Great. All right, we'll see you back here.
Thank you.
Thank you.